You are now in tune with the community on 318 Latino. Meet interesting people who make our community great. Hear their stories, check out their projects.
Gracias.
Welcome to 318 Latino, a media aimed at the Hispanic community, which began broadcasting back in June of 2019 and today has more than 250,000 reach per month, which, like our Hispanic community, is growing every day. We appreciate the presence today of Mayor Adrian Perkins, who accompanies us as a special guest. I'd like to introduce also Elena Sermons, the vice president of her family-owned landscaping company, Total Yard Care Incorporated. Loreli Lopez, vice president and co-owner of PPT Incorporated, which is a concrete construction company. And also Mr. Elias Sifuentes of Nicky's Mexican restaurant. Maria?
Thank you, Briant. So the reason for today's interview, Mayor Perkins, is in the past, the Hispanic community has always had a connection with our local government, in this case, the mayor. When we think of our local government leader, we always think mayor. It's just the easiest name or title to put out there. And in the past, Mayor Hightower, Cedric Glover, Ollie, Tyler would participate in our events, would sponsor or help projects that our community would be working on. And they just listen to our concerns.
Absolutely. So
we want to have that same connection, that same relationship with you.
Absolutely.
But obviously before that, I think you probably want to get to know us a little bit better and what what we consider us as the Hispanic community, a group that has a lot to do with the Shreveport area as well. Loreli?
Yes. Thank you for meeting with us. We would like to take this opportunity to introduce ourselves to you on behalf of all the Latino community in Shreveport. We're a very diverse community. We represent many different countries and cultures. In your recent interview with SB Magazine, you described yourself as living the American dream. And like yourself, thousands of us here in Shreveport are also in pursuit of this same dream. Many of us or our parents have immigrated to this country in hopes of great opportunities and futures for our families. And thanks to hard work, many of these families are living that dream today. More Latinos here in Shreveport are graduating from college, leading new careers, and building Latino-owned businesses. Locally, our Latino-owned businesses are currently estimated to be generating over $140 million in revenue per year and providing an average of 2,000 jobs. In addition, Latinos are a crucial part of our workforce, and jobs ranging from construction, landscaping, the medical field, engineers, military, restaurants. We're a family-oriented group, and we are continuously investing in our city by buying property and revitalizing our neighborhoods.
So now that you know a little bit about ourselves, obviously we want to get to know the mayor.
Absolutely. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in this community. I was born in the neighborhood called Cedar Grove. My mother raised me. I was raised by a single mother. She raised me and my two older brothers right here in Shreveport, and we did not have much at all. As a matter of fact, my grandparents were sharecroppers and plain dealing, and my mother came to Shreveport for more opportunities and to raise us. So we didn't have much, but my mom was big in value. So what we didn't have in material resources, we didn't have all the new games or shoes or cars or any of that. But as a matter of fact, we didn't have a car for years. My mom made up for that by teaching us the values and the things that are important in life. And it started off with church. Faith was huge in my household. So if the church doors were open, like me and my brothers were there, not just Sunday, I'm talking Wednesday, Friday, you name it. So we didn't have much time to get in trouble or do anything else because we were in church all the time. And then just hard work. My mom worked multiple jobs. She worked during the day, she worked for Swepco, the electric company here, as a secretary. But she made about $38,000 a year, not much money to raise 3 boys on. And at night, she would clean office buildings. So sometimes she would meet up with me after school and take me to her second job, and I would do homework while she cleaned office buildings here. And last is just education. She was able to get her bachelor's degree while working multiple jobs and raising 3 sons by the time I was in middle school. So she was like superwoman. So watching her, I was able to go to West Point and do well there and to the military and then on to Harvard Law School and come back and run for mayor. But she is like the greatest example that I've had throughout my life, and very much responsible for the person that's sitting in front of you today. So I really attribute a lot of my success to my mother and my values as well.
Okay, well, neat. Do you mind us asking, how old are you?
I'm 34 years old.
34. Young. The youngest mayor, I believe, we've had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think, was Cedric the last one that they said was the youngest? Cedric Glover, I think, was.
Mayor Glover and Mayor Hightower were 41 years old when they were elected.
Okay. Gotcha. So
if I did 2 terms, I will end at 41. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So went to West Point, then Harvard. What made you come back?
This community. So I felt very indebted to Shreveport because I started to build up this resume that everybody was telling me was like impressive, but I couldn't separate my resume from Shreveport because I wouldn't have been able to have and accomplish those things if it wasn't for this community. For instance, education. Like, I think about my kindergarten teacher, Miss McDonald. Now her name is Miss Dennis, who would stay after class and make sure I got concepts. And she awarded me Student of the Year when I was in kindergarten. And she made me think and believe that I was a smart kid at a very young age. And there was various teachers just throughout my journey. My principal in high school, Dr. Sandra McCullough, that really made sure I knew the value of education and really made sure I was successful and I had the resources and the tools that I needed. And that's just education. When it comes to, discipline and things like that, I think about members of my church and deacons at my church that made sure, my pants fit and I wore a belt and I, had a very clean demeanor. So everything about my resume, everything that I was able to accomplish started off from this foundation here in Shreveport. So when there was a lot of opportunities to go everywhere else, New York and LA and Chicago, I turned it down because I wanted to come back here to help, so that if a kid was growing up like me in Cedar Grove, or those kids that want to achieve the American dream, I wanted to come back and be an example for them, to let them know that you can accomplish whatever you want despite where you come from.
Okay, that's understandable. So I would say your love for the community that made you
absolutely
is your reason to come back.
Okay. Absolutely. And I mean, just if I can add something here, it kind of goes back to the comments you made earlier about, a lot of the Latino community here are from families that were, they were immigrants and they want to achieve the American dream. So me and the things that I accomplish and what I stand for, I want to be an inspiration to them as well.
Right. Can you tell us exactly what a mayor does, their responsibilities, and what were some of your goals when you were elected?
Yes. So a mayor is responsible. We have a strong mayor form of government here in Shreveport. That means that I'm responsible for not just the messaging and the direction of the city, but the actual administration of city business. So to make sure your garbage is picked up on time, your water is clean and reliable here, to make sure that our parks and recreational centers are alive and well and available to our young people. So across the board, any city department I run. So there's an operating budget of roughly $220 million a year that is under my management, and a capital budget, buildings, stuff like that, capital projects of about $300 million. So the city's budget, we most years we're going through about $500 million in a year. So I'm responsible for that massive budget. And I'll say that as far as my priorities, I ran on 3 things. I ran on public safety, economic development, and technology. And with public safety, I really emphasized in the first year community-oriented policing, to make sure that the law enforcement in the community actually got to know the people that they were policing in the neighborhoods. And myself and the police chief, we went into the neighborhoods and we made sure that we led by example, and the patrol officers would get to know the grandmothers on the church, on the porch, that looked around the neighborhood all day, every day, and knew everything that was going on, and the kids that play in the street. And it was the safest year in Shreveport in 45 years last year. And then with economic development, we brought in jobs in aeronautical maintenance and healthcare, and expanded a bunch of sectors here and got the unemployment rate down to 3.9%. Technology, we hired the city's first chief technology officer, who was helpful in allowing us to balance the city budget for the first time in over a decade, truly balance the budget, not pulling from the reserve. And he helped out with turning the deficit that I inherited. The operating budget I was talking about earlier, we inherited a deficit of negative $1.2 million. And after my first year in office, we had a surplus of nearly $4 million. So there was a lot of accomplishments in year one along the lines that, my priorities that I ran and campaigned on.
Okay. That's all very interesting. And I mean, let me ask you this. How would you describe Shreveport's residents, and what makes Shreveport residents strong? What makes Shreveport strong?
I would describe Shreveport's residents as our greatest asset here, honestly. I think we are an extremely diverse community. From perspective, socioeconomically, you name it. I mean, we have an Air Force Base just across the river that brings in thousands of airmen every year. A lot of them choose to make Shreveport-Bossier area their home. We're a southern state, so we got a lot of southern influence as well. We're really close to Texas. That has a very diverse community as well. So there's a lot. It's a bit of a mixing pot here, but at the end of the day, people here are our greatest asset because their kindness really is really, really good, and it leaves and it resonates in people's spirits if they come to visit our community. Their resilience is an asset as well, because no matter what we go through, whether it's extreme weather or flooding or you name it, people just rebuild and they rebuild stronger. And also just the camaraderie here, us working together no matter what neighborhoods that we're in to continue to push our city forward. So I say our people here are the greatest asset. All of that to say, we aren't perfect by any means, but we definitely have the ingredients to be a very, very powerful city.
So let me ask you this: what makes you proud to be a Shreveportian, if that's what we're called, Shreveportians?
Yeah.
And what do we really need to change about Shreveport?
Yeah. What makes me proud to be a Shreveportian are those people that I've talked about multiple times. The people who helped me growing up, the teachers in our community, the faith community here, those people that are working hard every single day to provide the American dream to their families. To be associated with this group is a very, very powerful thing. I wouldn't be here without having those associations and interacting with this community in that way. And the thing that I think we can improve on is acknowledging that right there, like our actual true power here, and having more pride in the city that we live, work in every single day. I think if we just accepted the beautiful things around us, then we would be a lot happier. We'd actually progress a lot faster and working with one another a lot better. And I think that's something that I've seen as mayor, is that we don't often appreciate the things that are around us and how much we have to be grateful for. When I hear people brag about Shreveport, 70% of the time is people from outside of our city that says, man, you have an incredible downtown, like so much could be going on here, or man, the food was so good, or hey, I interacted with this family at this restaurant and they were so nice and so kind. It's the nicest people I've ever met. And most of the time that's people from outside. So if we had that same appreciation and perspective as Shreveportians, then I think we'd be in a lot better position.
I like that. Maria?
We focus a little bit more on the positives than the negatives, I guess is where I get that from, right?
That's it, yeah.
And that goes with everything. Any organization, any big establishment, we can definitely say that. So Mayor, obviously due to COVID and the size of the studio, we couldn't have more people here present that would have liked to meet you, to talk with you, to interview you possibly. But they did send us some questions and concerns that we would love to share on their behalf.
Absolutely.
Starting with who you met before, Mr. Elias Sifuentes, who was able to make it, and would like to share with you his concerns in the city.
And I love Nicky's, by the way. I did not know when you were here. I should have known that, but I got you. Go ahead. So.
Mayor Perkins, thank you for your time. We appreciate every one of us. And we like to know you facts on the downtown. Downtown, we, as you know, I stayed many years, say 15 years.
Yep, in the Red River District.
And hurt me deeply when I got to shut it down. Yeah. Reason for that, we got so many incidents like the constructions. First, the Texas Bridge would take almost 2 years to complete it.
Yeah.
That killed us. Then we got the Festival Plaza Bridge. That was the second one. Then we got the epidemic on top of us. So it was no room to survive. However, we like to know if you can share with us any future program to revive the downtown.
Yes.
the residential district is what I want myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, even before I get into these comments, I genuinely have to thank you for everything that you've done in this community, Mr. Elias. You being a business owner and having Nicky's and really attracting people to our downtown did pay dividends for the overall community. I've been on the campaign trail, something I didn't talk about when I talked about economic development in this interview, but I talked about it all the time when I was campaigning, is that we have to focus on downtown. We absolutely have to. If you go to any city in America that's growing, their downtown is the heart of it. And that's what's driving it. And it's driving it because young people are attracted to downtowns right now. They want to stay downtown. They want to walk downtown. They want to work downtown. So you were a centerpiece of that. But I have to say, 2020 has been extremely difficult because of this pandemic. If all the momentum that we had coming into 2020 with having an urban park downtown and actually attracting technology companies downtown, all of that has been wiped away. And we've had even more unfortunate incidents like, Spring Street, the bridge was knocked out because of a train derailing. A lot of things that were out of our control. We didn't ask for COVID-19. We didn't ask for that train to be derailed. The construction downtown is extremely frustrating. I live downtown and I have to drive like 5 blocks around to even get back to my job or to my residence. So I even personally invested downtown just like you, and I know how frustrating it is because 2020 has very much been a bit of I would say a step back from the progress that we were making. What I would say about how we go forward into the future is we have to remain committed as a city. You've sacrificed a lot being a business owner, but we have to remain committed as a city to investing in downtown and attracting people to downtown. The attraction to downtown from young people and people moving around and identifying areas to live and work in, that isn't going to go away after COVID-19, and we have to continue to invest in downtown so we can capitalize on that movement. And I can tell you, I am 100% committed to that vision. I just know this year is just extremely difficult because of what we're going through.
Yeah. Wherever I go myself, I got all the questions. When you gonna reopen downtown? Mm-hmm. So we're gonna wait maybe after the year.
Yeah.
If the city allow me to consider me to work with those guys, I will come back.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, whatever you need, whatever the time comes, whatever you need, please let us know. Whenever construction clears up to where your customers can have a clear path to get to your restaurant, whatever you need, you let us know. You have a proven track record in business, and we would love to have you back as soon as we get our situation under control.
So the situation right now is just COVID, or construction is
it's all the above. So restaurants are still, even in phase 3, are at 75% capacity, but you at a time you had to close, and then
due to construction. So the construction's kind of started.
It's on top of it. Yeah.
So COVID, just because we do have a lot of restaurants that did thrive in COVID. They had to make changes. They had to prep themselves, and your other locations have been able to do so. Yeah. I think this one was just that construction.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The COVID it was a bonus. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The COVID was a bonus.
Yeah.
It's just.
I was sharing with you this guy. I'm the older, so we're all. I remember 45 years ago, I was working downtown ever since. I remember when they're under the bridge.
Yeah.
Thursday to Friday to Saturday, the crowd it was elbow to elbow.
Big. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was going. And then it gone.
Yeah, and we have to get back there. We have to get back to that time. It was what was it? The lights over the bridge. You remember that when Texas Street was packed with people as well, and then under the bridge was packed as well, and we had Wet Willie's, and every single building and facility had thriving businesses in it. Yeah, we absolutely have to get back there, and like I said, I'm committed to it. We just, right now, getting growth in the economy is nearly impossible for businesses, especially when it comes to people having to walk around and be close to one another. But as soon as we can do that again, we got to get back there.
Well, we appreciate anything you can do for us.
100%. And you let us know. Like I said, I know you talked to probably Shelly. She manages our buildings and facilities in the city. But whatever you need, make sure you contact me directly as well, and I'll be happy to help.
And I will appreciate it.
Now, of course.
Thank you for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, this next question comes from a construction owner, business owner. They said, you have made a recent effort to modernize the building permit system. However, applications for building permits are still taking weeks and weeks for approval. This delay has affected our construction industry, as recently material prices have increased by 20%. This has caused many projects to be canceled or postponed. Are you aware of these delays, and what actions have you taken to address them, and how can we fix this to continue the economic development in our city?
Yes, I was not aware of the delays to that degree. I knew we were going through some delays because we've had to go to a lot of remote working, and the MPC are the ones that are processing in the new permitting system. The new permitting system is called My Government Online. So that's that technology component where I was saying technology can help, because we've essentially consolidated everything where people would have to physically come down to get permits and sign them and bring them back. So now we made it, My Government Online allows people to do it over the internet. But what we didn't account for was that even when you do it online, that there has to be a human to review it, to review these documents at the end of the day. And the MPC staff didn't grow or anything. So there's still a person that is somewhat of the bottleneck and the constraint here. So now that I'm aware of this though, construction is something that has been actually doing okay throughout the pandemic. It's one of those sectors that has been doing okay throughout the pandemic. And it's a part of our economy that any part of our economy that's doing okay, we got to make sure we're supportive of it so that we can continue to thrive. So now that I'm aware of this, I'll talk to the director of the MPC, Mr. Alan Clark, and see what's his plan on how we can kind of expedite it and make sure that we're not being burdensome on the construction business. Because I didn't know that it was weeks at a time with delays. So we will work on that. But I also want to thank him for his work as well, or her work, whoever wrote the question.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And like you said, the construction industry has been doing okay during this pandemic. They were considered essential and were able to continue working throughout the summer. This brings us to the next question. Although the pandemic has caused high unemployment, there are still many industries like construction that are still hiring and looking for qualified people. However, a lot of the business owners complain of a lack of skilled workforce in Shreveport. How can you help prepare a more qualified, skilled workforce in our city?
Okay, so I have a very specific response, and then I'm gonna get to a broader one. Okay. The specific response, I'm so happy to hear this, and I need to tell them if they would reach out to NLEP. Angie White is running NLEP right now. That's the Northwest Louisiana Economic Partnership. NLEP has resources from the state. Y'all have heard of the permanent closures of Bentler, or not, it hadn't been permanent at Bentler, but it's been indefinite at Bentler Steel. So there's a lot of people looking for work from Bentler Steel. The permanent closure of Libby Glass, the permanent closure of the casino in Bossier. There's a lot of workers right now that are looking for work, and NLEP actually partners those workers to businesses that are looking for a workforce. And a lot of those, that's skilled labor as well. And NLEP, and they will do pretty much headhunting for that business for free. So tell them to please contact NLEP if they're looking to hire skilled labor. Now, overall, something that surprised me when I came into the mayor's office when I was talking about economic development, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of connections to companies like Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. So I reached out as soon as I was elected and said, hey, what would it take to bring you to Shreveport? And the thing that I heard reoccurring was, you don't have the workforce for us to come to Shreveport. And it's a very difficult problem, because if you think about it, I can't attract the workforce if I don't have the jobs. And then I found out I couldn't attract the jobs if I didn't have the workforce. So it's a circular problem. And the way that, some case studies on how you break this circular problem is that you have to be able to partner with those companies and academic institutions, so that an academic institution will train up that workforce for that particular company. So this doesn't just have to be some massive company, like some massive car manufacturing company like GM or something. This also applies to mid cap and small cap companies as well. So even smaller companies. If you're looking for workers or skilled labor for a particular area, you can actually work with NLEP again and get a local university or a local trade institution to be able to train up your workers for you. so that they can go directly into your business. And that's something that a lot of people don't know.
Is that somewhat of what SUSLA is doing with the Air Force, not Air Force, but the Air Engineers training?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
So, on to schools, Caddo schools. Obviously, COVID, once again, the topic that we just can't avoid, had a huge effect on schools.
It did.
And we're still dealing with it right now, trying to get back to it, trying to get our kids back into the classroom. But before COVID, we do know that Caddo School had to shut down a few schools in the area due to low enrollment. Obviously, if they don't have the numbers, you can't get funded for it, so you have to shut down schools. You combine other schools with each other, and because of that, Caddo obviously had to let go of a lot of teachers. This question is from actually teachers in the Caddo district. So you let go of teachers, you downsize schools, and here comes COVID. You shut down schools, and now we're trying to get back into a regular rhythm, trying to get schools back in. But now you don't have the teachers that you had because you had to let go of some because you shut down some schools. And now teachers are, I guess I would say maybe scared or concerned that they're going to have classes of more than 25 kids per teacher, and they're low staffed right now. So teachers are really concerned that Caddo is not prepared to go back. What is your input on this?
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I'm being pedagogical or too educational with this, but I do have to say, from the city of Shreveport standpoint, we have no official authority over schools.
Okay.
We don't. No. But I know enough to I'll respond in what I know about our school system, because even over if you're talking about our jails or our school, I still have to know. So I know about this, but I have no authority to change it. I just know enough to be able to respond to a citizen, because people come up to me all the time and say, "Why are you sending our kids back to school?" And I'm like, I'm not sending your kids back to school.
Correct, right.
I don't have any authority. So, but I'll say this: you're absolutely right. There's been low enrollment in our schools for some time now, and that's what's causing us to close down and consolidate. So our community has been shrinking over the last couple of years. And that's another reason why I ran for office, because you have to create opportunities to bring people in and to stop the bleeding of people and talent and to start to eventually grow the city. So our schools have been shrinking because of that. And they were laying off teachers. But I will say COVID has presented a unique opportunity, because a lot of teachers, some of our older teachers, have actually been retiring at a much higher rate. So Caddo Parish actually does not have the amount of teachers that have the qualifications. So now there's a lot of temporary teachers that are teaching, and there's a lot of availability if somebody does have the qualifications to go into a classroom. And I know that the parish has been saving a lot of money, so I hope that they are looking out for teachers and giving them pay raises, especially with all that they're having to do. So there is a lot of availability for teachers right now to go back into the classroom if they desire. But I spent the first day of school at Cherokee Park watching teachers go through virtual and in-class teaching. And it's double. It seems like it's double the work. I got to be honest. When they're teaching kids that's in front of them, and then having to make sure that the children online are paying attention and are getting the concepts, it's very taxing on teachers. So we're asking a lot of our teachers right now as well in the classroom. And what do we do in an environment like this where safety still has to be a priority and something that we work through? I don't quite know, and I don't envy Superintendent Lamar Gorey for the decisions that he and the board have to make on a day-to-day basis. It's a tough place to be in.
Right. No, I would hate to have that decision as well in any institution that big or anything, especially when it comes to the safety of our children. But I think, like you said, the CDC is so realizing that they can go back and it is safe. And if we take the means, I think their concern is just to follow those guidelines, to be able to follow those guidelines. Yes. Are they prepared so that they can stay safe and go back safely? Yes. So
I've heard from teachers. A lot of teachers in the classroom were just as concerned. They said they needed more time to learn the technology, to figure things out, to make sure their classrooms were set up and were safe. That is a universal concern amongst teachers that I've talked to. But they're our heroes. They're out there figuring it out every single day.
I know. We had to be them for a couple of months, and it was no fun. No fun. My hat's off to them. Respects to teachers even more.
And I'm sure the parents I'm sorry, really quick. I'm sure, I got to also give kudos to the parents at home that are having to figure out how to raise children in their house when they might be teleworking, or they might have to continue to work and figuring out childcare and everything. Like, I got to applaud them as well and that really speaks to the resilience of this community as well. I know we have to do it in this moment, but I just want to thank them for that, because our children are our greatest resource in this city, and the fact that they're doing all they can to raise them in the right environment and make sure they're getting their education and make sure they're taking care of them. That's a lot on their shoulders.
Right. Now, you mentioned that the school board is not your responsibility. We do understand that. But you did. I guess I see you, like we said, as a mayor, as a figure. Oh, yeah. And as a young mayor, and as obviously one that speaks very well. By the way, you present yourself very well.
Thank you.
I personally would see you as a, how would you call a role model, if you mind, a role model.
Well, thank you.
And I have, by the way, I read your interview with SB Magazine. Great interview. By the way, SB Magazine, it was really good. And you point out a lot on early education. That's where I'm going with this, since we're still talking about education. You thrive on that. You think that the city, we have to put more into that, right? So regardless of what Caddo does and stuff, maybe as you personally. So, and you may not know this, but I do know that in the last week, Caddo has reported more than 1,000 students missing. You do know that?
I do know that.
Virtually and in person. So they don't have students even online. So that's 1,000 students that we don't know what they're doing, where they are. The technology has been provided. I understand Caddo provided Chromebooks, right, for these students.
They did.
Those books are turning up where? In pawn shops is what I hear.
Really? Yes. I haven't heard that one. No, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. Oh, man.
So these Chromebooks are turning up in pawn shops.
Because they have to give them back. They actually loan these computers, so that's very surprising.
Right, and so the pawn shops obviously can't take them up either, because it says on their property of school they can't buy them from whoever's bringing them. Yeah. So the pawn shops are calling the Caddo school board. Hey, we've got another kid, but I can't buy it. I can't take it. They also can't give it back to. They just can't. They refuse it from the child or from whoever is selling it. Yeah. Where I'm getting to is you as a young figure, as someone who is up, in our eye, in the media, in probably visiting schools, like you said. What do you think we should do, or what do you think the school board should do, and maybe you partake in it to get these students back into the classroom, because that is our future. It could be our good future, or it could be our bad future.
100%.
To increase, I say, the crime of the city to,
Yeah. No, that's very, very alarming. And I'll tell you, even on when I was at Cherokee Park on the first day of school, there were a lot of students missing, because every desk set up in the classroom was supposed to have a student in it. And these desks were obviously socially distanced and spaced out. So it was very few desks in the classroom, but if it was 12 desks, it might have been 4 students. And the principal was very alarmed about it. And she was like, for the desk we have in the classroom, like, it's supposed to be a student here. And obviously that's not just at her school, but it's a parish-wide problem right now. And I know the district attorney is actually looking at it, because, they handle kids that are not in school. This is very, very, very alarming to me, because this is our future. And I think just from a broader picture, these I would like to look at the data, because I haven't seen it, but I would imagine that a lot of it is a correlation to probably kids that are lower on a socioeconomic scale, kids that are obviously hurting for resources. If they're trying to cash in this, they probably need it for money. Nobody's just going to randomly take a computer to a pawn shop if they have enough resources. Right. So I would imagine this is a community that's deprived of resources. And the reason why it's even more alarming is because most of the time, if you're talking about a low-income community like that, they are already behind in the classroom because of a lot of other issues. Right. Whether it's, students who come to school hungry and can't focus on the lesson because they're hungry. Or students that are traumatized because they hear gunfire in their neighborhood, or they have lost a sibling or a parent to gun violence. And so there's a lot of things. So the fact that right now, when it is more essential than ever to be in the classroom and continue to learning to catch up to their peers, we're probably seeing them fall behind even more. So you're going to have even more of a disparity with education that they couldn't afford even before this. So that's why that's alarming to me, because we're going to have a future, or if we don't figure out a way to stop and compensate for this, you're talking about 10, 15 years from now where our workforce won't even be as skilled as it is now. And that's a very dangerous thing to think about. So I would say from, being a role model, the first thing I can do is just offer myself as an example. I'm from that low income community. That's the point of reference. I'm from Cedar Grove. Like my mom, I remember nights when my mom didn't have enough food to feed us all. So she would get up from the table early, try to sneak away from the table so me and my brothers could eat what was available. So as a role model, I can tell those children, like, I know what you're going through. I know what it's like to suffer as a family. But what you cannot do is not get an education. Like, that is the key. That is the most available key in our country to be successful at the end of the day and to escape your circumstances. So I really hate to hear that. And that's just my encouraging word to them. And I'll continue to trumpet that. And hopefully I can get involved with the schools in a bigger way going forward to address that issue. But me and the superintendent, we talk a lot, and that, we're dealing with a lot. Right now, we're working on a program of mentorship for some of our young people who we've seen that demographic go into crime, go into violence, and we're trying to stop that. But I'll actually see how I can help with this as well.
Okay.
So you mentioned you don't actually have authority over the school system, but you do oversee the finances of the city. That includes the water company. So one of the biggest questions that we got was there was recently a lawsuit against the water company in Shreveport because there was overpayments from the residents.
Yep.
That lawsuit was won by the residents, I believe. So there's supposed to be money coming back to them. Has that already happened? Will it happen soon?
We have been. So I'll say this. First of all, that overbilling issue happened before my administration. I just want to put that on record.
Right.
I get blamed for enough, so I want to make sure that happened before my administration. But we've actually been working with those attorneys since I came into office to try to pay that money back as quickly as possible. What held it up in court is the attorney's fees, actually, the negotiations over how much money the attorneys would make. But we've been trying to pay that money back. The city can't use it. It's in an escrow account that we can't even touch. So we want to pay this money back as quickly as possible. And I'll have to check with the city attorney. I don't believe we've started paying the money back yet, but it should be coming within the next 30 to 60 days.
What was the amount?
Well, it's going to differ per person. I don't remember the total amount, but it's going to differ per person, and it's not anything that's groundbreaking. So please, if your water bill is like
if I get my $10,
if your water bill is like $100 a month, don't expect like a $10,000 refund. Like that's just not going to happen. And I really hate that they've they've set some people expectations to be that way, but it'll be. A minimal amount. It's just a large amount to the city because we have 64,000 households to collect money from for water.
So another question that I know the department doesn't pertain to you, but I know this question has come up before to you, again, referring to your SB magazine interview. But again, when we think of mayor, we think of, like you said, everything that involves the city, including crime, which we mentioned in education. And with that comes along our police force. Yep. So you mentioned as well, and there's a rumor about defunding and whatnot, and you have already stated that you don't plan on defund. It's ridiculous. Obviously, we want to support our police officers. We need our police officers. But what you didn't mention, I guess, was what we could, no, you did mention this. You said we are understaffed. Both sheriff and police department are understaffed, right? For different reasons. I think we've heard income. So starting, rate as a police officer is not, I guess, ideal. Technology in the police force also. Candidates. So, I've heard we have a great academy. What I hear though is we don't have the good candidates that qualify for it. So, but I think I always figure that money-wise brings you better candidates, right? What is your input on that as far as, obviously not defunding, but how can we help our police force to be able to get to that point, to have better candidates, to be able to staff more?
Yeah, well, so I'll talk about the money part, and then I'll talk about the candidates part. The money part, we're looking. Well, first of all, I'll say this: right now, Shreveport pays, I think, the third highest in the state when it comes to pay. When people talk about regionally, we are like one of the lowest. People are drawing a circle into Texas, and Texas has way more resources than we have. They have more resources from the state level. You know, cities like Dallas and Frisco and all that, they have way more resources at the municipal, at the local level as well. So we can't compete with those jurisdictions. But as far as Louisiana, we do very well. And especially if you drew a circle towards the east of Louisiana. As far as any city in northern Louisiana, we pay the most. And Bossier pays their officers more early in their career, like for the first 12 to 15 years. But after that, we pay way more, and our benefits are way better as well. So the pay thing is set up to incentivize our officers to stay longer. You don't want to incentivize a system where you got officers that stay 5 years and they leave. So that's the way it's set up. And we're trying to figure out ways to offer more money up front to keep people around. So we are trying to figure that out. And we're working with the city council about providing those pay raises. But I'll say this, if you became a police officer in Shreveport, you still make a very good living here, and especially the longer that you're in it. And we need people, especially those that are concerned about crime, to go to the academy, to sign up. If you know somebody, we should do it. And you know, I met you at the demonstrations and all the things that was going on in the city, and it was predominantly, well, I shouldn't say predominantly, it was a multiracial demonstrations in the city. It was black, white, brown, you name it. But I would say the black community, this is something that the black community and the brown community both come together with, because our communities are typically over-policed in America. I'm telling, especially minorities, that you all should be joining our police force. You know, if you are concerned about the way that our police are policing in your neighborhood, then join the police force and be a part of the solution as well. And if we just got people to sign up, then we would have enough police to be more effective in our response to crime. And with that, I just have to say this, Shreveport Police Department, we have a budget to fill about 580 police officers. And right now we're roughly 500, just a little bit under. I think like 498, 497. If our police officers were parked at every street corner, there is still a lot of crime that would still occur in our community. The way that we truly bring crime down in our community is our police department working alongside of our citizens each and every day. And that requires trust. That requires our citizens saying, you know, hey, my uncle or my brother or my aunt or somebody just walked out the house with a knife. And I think they're going to do something, and they're walking this way, and they're, you know, something to where our police can respond to it and stop something from happening before it happens. Because if we don't have that kind of cooperation amongst the citizens, then only thing we are going to do often is just get calls to respond after the tragic event has already happened. And that way crime is already up. And a lot of times with these shootings and these murders, it only takes one tragic event because everything else is retaliatory after that. So, you know, we are trying to stop that chain reaction from happening before it even happens. And we need the community to get involved with it. If you see something, we absolutely need you to say something so that we can deploy what resources we do have effectively. So it's kind of various things that we need to accomplish. But it really starts off with cooperation between the citizens and the police department. And then us as a city, we have a responsibility to have the strongest police department that we can.
One big thing I've heard before is a comment one of my friends said that police officers don't stop crime, they respond to crime. And that resonated with me a lot. In that same way that you just mentioned, is that same fact that, you know, you guys are only able to do as much as once you know about it. You're not really able to stop it before it happens. So, yeah, we do need the community to be a part of it as well. And also, another thing about the crime is, well, poverty is one of the biggest, you know, starters of crime. So I think that there's more to be done there as well.
Oh, yeah, big time. I mean, that's the reason why I talk about public safety when I ran for mayor, but I talked about economic development and I talked about economic opportunities because you have to give people an alternative. And that's what's so scary about COVID-19. I know we keep coming back to COVID, but that's what's scary about COVID-19 right now, because we have a lot of employees right now that have lost their job, a lot of working class people that have lost their job, and our federal government has cut off those unemployment benefits that was holding them over at the beginning of this pandemic. But you have to add on top of that, so they're not working now. And then the housing moratorium is over. So the relief that they had to not pay their rent or mortgage bills are starting to come again. So how are they going to pay for rent or mortgage when we're in a pandemic and the government is telling them to stay inside of their house or their home? And they don't have they might not be able to afford the home that they're in. And it's just a lot of anxiety that's adding up on top of people right now. And what you don't want is for them to start, having to rely on crime to take care of their families.
Is that what you meant by, or please maybe better explain what you meant by government investing in housing? Is that what you meant in your answer?
Yes. Well, so I said the government, and I was talking about when people were talking about defunding the police, I was saying if the government could invest in housing, if I see that if you put X amount of dollars towards housing, then you would create a safer environment for people. It was two parts. It was something that was a bit separate. But if I was saying if I could invest in housing to give people a safer community or neighborhood to live in, or not concentrate poverty in one area where we really see crime pop up, then we would invest in that housing, because that would keep our officers safe and our community safe at the end of the day. So it was two different things. The housing thing I'm talking about in relation to COVID-19 is that the federal government signed a housing moratorium that expanded through July or August. And then it stopped, meaning that you could not get evicted. If you were in a home and you were paying rent or mortgage, you could not get evicted. So if you lost your job, it was fine. Your home was fine. But the housing moratorium is over. You can get evicted right now. And like I said, that's what really scares me if you think about everything that's happening this year. People are frustrated because they can't travel. They can't go outside. Weddings have been canceled. They can't go to restaurants. There's an anxiety about, am I going to catch this virus? And now you throw on top of that they don't have money to pay for food or pay for rent, and that's just a very dangerous place to put people in, and you're pushing people's backs against the wall.
I think it was in the question of the defunding, because you think that'll create a safer environment for them. That's what it was.
I do.
So you did say that.
Housing is just one of those fundamental things, right? People need security, people need housing, shelter, and people need food. Like, those are the basic resources that we all need. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of people have housing insecurity because the housing is expensive or it's not available to them, or because they make $7 an hour, they're making minimum wage, they can't afford quality housing. And then food is an insecurity for a lot of people. In Louisiana, 20% of our population was already experiencing food insecurities in April. So that's only, that's likely gotten worse. So you got to take care of those fundamental things. And if you aren't taking care of the fundamental things, that's when people resort to crimes, because they're like, I need a place to stay. Like, I have to feed myself. Like, I have to feed my family. So that's what we have to tend to at a minimum. If government does anything, the economic development, that's like fancy. Bringing in a company, that's like fancy stuff. But at a minimum, we have to make sure people have their basic necessities.
But you don't see it as maybe how I guess I would see it, or she would see it maybe when it comes to hiring people to work, that the work ethic is maybe lost when you are providing for someone, because the work is there.
Yeah.
The jobs are there. We've just said it.
Yeah.
The jobs are there.
Yeah. That's right. I would say it's a lag between people knowing about the jobs and when you can actually fill the jobs. And there's often a lag on the skills of the jobs in those jobs. So, but I think, I guess the biggest way to describe my approach, and to bridge it to yours, is this. People are working 40 hours in the United States a week, and they are still poor. They are still low income poor. They are making, it's at $7, you can't even afford an apartment. If you make the minimum wage in Louisiana, and Louisiana is one of the cheapest states in the country, you can't even afford an apartment in Louisiana and meet your other requirements. And that's what I have an issue with. Our economy is broken for a lot of people that are very hard workers. And there's a stigma put out on people across the board to say, oh, you know, they're lazy or they don't want to work. But there is a mountain of data that shows people, including my mother. Remember, my mother had to work 80 hours a week, working 2 jobs to take care of me and my brothers. And our economy has only got even more disparate since I grew up. So I would push back on them people, the people who say, oh, well, people are lazy and this and this. No, our system is broken where the economy is not working for half of the people that want to work.
I wouldn't consider it lazy because I think I've seen it happen even right now during COVID with people who I would consider having a good work ethic, doing the same thing. Yeah. If you see, well, make more this way by not doing anything than going back to work, I'll choose this. And it's very competitive for the business owner to compete against. I can't, in the long run, after you get all this money, I can't compete.
Oh yeah. And that's where I would say, 100%. So I see that too. So it's crazy being a chief executive of the city. I'm running a business too. I have employees too. I have 3,000 employees, and my employees, you know, we pay them. I think my lowest employee makes a little over $10 an hour. So I had to compete with those federal benefits as well. And a lot of my employees, we gave them an option to get the federal unemployment benefits. So no, I agree with you. And I think structurally, and this is a much broader conversation and people are going to be like, where are we going with it? But I think structurally, number one, the federal government needs to be able to raise the minimum wage, but protect our businesses in doing so. So if you're a smaller business that can't afford, because Shreveport is not New York City. So if you try to put a blanket number on what minimum wage is, that doesn't work for a lot of people. So if we do raise the minimum wage, the government has to protect businesses and offer tax breaks or tax incentives to smaller businesses that can't afford to meet that number. So right now, if we did an extrapolation to say, if the federal government's $600 benefit a week was paying people upwards of $12 an hour, then the federal government should pay businesses or figure out a way through our tax system to allow businesses to pay the same amount. So it's not a decision that a person's making on, if I don't work, I make more. But if I go back to work for the city of Shreveport, I make $10 an hour. That's not fair to me. That's not fair to private business. And our federal government needs to figure out a way to help out smaller businesses. And for somebody to say, oh, well, the federal government can't pay businesses. Well, they pay corporations billions. The big corporations, they paid them billions. So why aren't we looking after our local and our small businesses? Why aren't we looking after our landscaping businesses? Why aren't we looking after our concrete businesses? And I think the federal government needs to support them in the exact same way that we do for the other ones.
Sorry, we had 2 years of delay on all this.
No, it's okay. No, I understand. I'm yours.
Right. So our next question kind of fades into that as well. It's a question from one of our local residents. It says, when does the universal basic income start? I think it's something you've mentioned. How is it funded? And how will it be monitored where these funds are going to?
Yeah. Good question. So we're going to do this UBI experiment, Universal Basic Income experiment, for a lot of the reasons of what I was just telling you about. And we were looking at UBI even before like the COVID-19 thing happened. But we're going to put out more details in 2 weeks. Okay. It will be privately funded, though. This will not be tax dollars that we're doing. This is a trial so that we can collect information and data to make an argument on whether or not you should do it or whether or not you should not do it. And you better believe one of the things you look at is if it incentivizes people to work or if it incentivizes people to not work. And if it obviously incentivizes people to not work, then we would say this is a terrible idea. Right. But what we've seen in cities like Jackson, Mississippi and Stockton, California, and the cities that have already started this is that it's the opposite. It actually has encouraged people to work and be more productive and actually give people opportunities to where they used to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. Now they have enough time to go to school at night and they become a more skilled labor. So it's actually been a multiplying effect in communities. And another stigma to this, or people think that what's going to happen with UBI, are people going to use it on vices like drugs and alcohol. Like there is like no evidence of that whatsoever. I think it might be 1% of the funding because they track the funding once it's given. People are using it on education. People are using it on healthcare. People are using it on housing. Rather, I talked about concentration of poverty. With that extra bump of money, people are saying, I don't want to go to I'm not going to live in this neighborhood. I get to live in this neighborhood.
Right.
That's moderately safer. So these things are going towards an overall quality of life, not just the micro level of people, but over the community. These communities are greatly benefiting from this. And the reason why I'm willing to try this is a couple things. One, it's not public dollars. It's a trial. And I think cities have an
But it's a loan?
No, it's no loan. You don't pay this money back. You get this money. You will get this money, and you'll be able
From
to
where?
keep it.
Like where does it
So
come
private industry. So right now, Jack Dorsey from Twitter committed $3 million, and a lot of other CEOs from big companies have committed a lot of money, millions of dollars to this pot, so that cities like Shreveport can exercise a trial period for it. So this is all private dollars from, it's a lot of tech companies. There's a lot of companies that have done very well. We've had some companies lately that are into like food distribution. It's done really well in COVID-19 environment that have jumped in to donate money too. So it's all private
We do
dollars.
like donations.
So it's donations.
Yes,
'Cause,
it's
we always hear the
donations.
term "nothing's for free," right?
Yeah, nope. It's all donations from people that have benefited tremendously from our economy the way that it is and have billions of dollars. So this is all people that are done. So it's no loan. You don't have to pay this money back. I guess the burdensome part of it is that they have to observe what you're spending the money on.
Want to be a public information where we can see the money come from and how it's affected and
Yes.
how it's tracking?
Yes, and it's gonna be and I know. I mean, it's black and brown people, black people too. We don't like the government to track a lot of the things we're doing, but there has to be a degree of transparency with this so we can study it. And I'll say the city, we are the ones that are facilitating it, but we're not going to be the ones choosing people. We're going to give that it's going to be an outside entity, and it'll be a lottery. And another thing people don't know about UBI is everybody's eligible for it. It's not income based. So it's not just the poorest.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, it's not just the poorest, the most vulnerable. It's everybody will get it because they're trying to observe what are people spending this additional income on.
Excellent. I think our next question kind of fades into that as well. We've heard there's a possibility of a $35 million loan to the city. Mm-hmm. Where is that coming from, and how will that be paid back?
So that was voted down yesterday at city council meeting.
Okay.
Yes. So that's not, and where that would have come, that would just it's a typical bank loan like me or you would get right now. That's all it was for the city.
For the city.
It would have been one for the city. Yes.
What do you talk about? What is your thoughts?
I thought it was good because structurally a city is not set up to survive a pandemic fiscally. And the reason why I say that is this. When this pandemic hit the city, there were projections that we would make a $20 to $25 million shortfall. Well, even if we had done everything right, which we hadn't, remember I inherited a negative $1 million. So it's not like I had a pot of $20 million sitting around. It's only prescribed for us to save roughly $10 million in our reserve fund. So even if we did everything right, we still would have had a $10 million shortfall at the end of the year. So the reason why we're doing this loan, which is unprecedented, we've never done it before, is to, instead of, I guess a good analogy for an individual is, instead of you overdrafting your account and paying penalties on that overdraft, we've taken a credit card. We have a credit card now. So that if the city through COVID-19, and COVID-19 is still alive and well, and we still have budgetary shortfalls, if we got to a point where we wouldn't have enough money, instead of us overdrafting our account and not having enough money to pay employees, to pay police, to pay fire, or and accrue any kind of penalties, we would just pull from that $35 million.
Release to keep funding or to working with them for we can continue having our state of Louisiana that is one of the biggest states in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
We feel so proud to have it in here in Shreveport.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's just a little comment.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely, and we've been working with the state fair. We've been working with the state fair as well throughout this pandemic. I think they've made an announcement that they're going to push it because at the state level, the governor's executive order is the one that said you can't have festivals right now.
Yes,
so that's what's pushing it. But yeah, we'll do. It's our obligation as the city to do all that we can. And I'll say this as well, that we've talked a lot about the money that the city has available, and it's not as much as people think that we do have. But there are other pots of money as well. The people don't understand, but it's your tax dollars that are paying for these other pots. Yeah. The parish commission has roughly $40 million in their reserve fund. That's and in their savings account essentially. The school board has the same in their reserve. I would say the city of Shreveport, our money, we're the least healthy out of all entities, and people come to us first often. And that doesn't work. But also the state, you pay your taxes to the state. You know, the state has dollars for these things, and the federal government has dollars for these things. And that's another big reason why I made the decision that I did this year is this. I've realized more than ever that this entire system has to work for everybody. You can't just leave it on the shoulders of the city. Right. You can't leave it on the shoulders of the parish. You can't leave it on the shoulders of the state. Like, this entire system has to take care of it has to be functional for everybody. And too often we don't pay attention to different areas. And it's hard. People are working, people are raising kids, people are doing a million things. So you don't want to be taking a civics class every day to try to figure out what part of government you need to contact and are they working for you and all this other stuff. It's very hard, but you know, I think that's my job to bring attention to that and kind of simplify it for people. It's okay.
So we're
if I was speaking Spanish, you couldn't understand me at all.
Seguro?
Because I don't speak Spanish.
Okay. Let's see here from Vito Reiner. Major Hightower is remembered for the infrastructure that he created in downtown, the drive for businesses, etc. Cedric Glover is remembered for his work on the economic development. Ollie Tyler is remembered for a Clean the City campaign and the works of other public streets and parks. And now that you're running for Senate, tell us, what will be your legacy in the city and how will you be remembered?
Yeah, I want my legacy to be in a city that I outfitted this city for the 21st century economy through technology. And the reason why I say that, the hiring of the city's chief technology officer, like a lot of people don't quite understand what that means, but I'll give you some insight into it. With us actually acknowledging technology, it's helped us a lot. So the way we were even able to go from that negative $1.2 million to $4 million surplus in the first year was because our tech department did a query and found unclosed transactions that the city had conducted for years. And in those unclosed transactions, it was like $100 here, $200 here, and it was thousands of them. And we were able to consolidate that, and they found $3 million. If you didn't have a technology department that had that capacity, we would have never been able to be fiscally healthy. And if the city's not fiscally healthy, we can't do anything that's dynamic or fun or promotes growth. We are literally just going to be managing the city and picking up your trash and making sure your water's there on time. So, and me hiring a city's first chief technology officer, it allowed us to do that, but it's allowed us to do a lot of other things as well. It sends a signal out to businesses that Shreveport is a modern city and we aren't stuck in the 1990s.
I don't know, it's like a poor city, a poor state buying all this technology when our needs are more low level.
And that's my argument though, because technology helps the most vulnerable of us. Right now in Cedar Grove and a lot of our urban areas, Moortown, you name it, you know, the children who don't have access to virtual learning, it's them. It's them. So that's so technology is a part of that. If you want to keep them in the African American community, the black community, and a lot of the brown community as well, are the people who primarily are opting out of the in-class education because the black and brown community were disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and had more deaths than other demographics and suffered the most. So these families, for safety purposes, and they're going to choose safety, their children are now stuck in the home and they need access to technology to be able to get into the classroom and keep up with their education. So it might seem like a luxury good, but it's not. And the thing about technology, if you don't grasp it, it keeps going and it gets away from you. Right now, Facebook. Did Shreveport participate in the growth of Facebook? We didn't. In that way, and we don't have a piece of that pie either. And we probably all have it on our phone. I know 318 Latino, you're using Facebook, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this idea that if we bring in technology that we can't afford it or that it's too far in front of us, I think it's a false framing of it and it sets us up for failure. If we don't embrace it, we will continue to fall further behind and the most vulnerable will continue to fall further behind. So that's why I'm so big with technology. It's something that we cannot ignore. It's in our lives and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Real quickly, you mentioned the $4 million that you were able to find and
$3 million.
Okay, $3 million.
We did some other things as well. We passed a sanitation fee to generate revenue too. So we had to do some other things as well.
Have those funds already been allocated?
No, they don't. Those funds were used this year pretty much so that we wouldn't go broke when we started to experience those steep shortfalls in April in May. And the good news is because we were able to, management wise, like really squeeze the belt, we think this year we'll actually finish the year off at about maybe like $6 million in a reserve fund. Okay. But we have to have somewhat of a rainy day fund, or we go broke.
Okay, we have a next question. You're running for Senate. If you win the Senate seat, you'll be able to vote on federal laws.
Yes.
Many of our audience members want to know, what is your stance on immigration reform and specifically the DACA program?
Yeah, so I 100% support DACA. My stance on immigration is that we have to be able to allow people, whether legal or illegal, in our communities to be able to participate without especially if you have, this is a real life appreciation for what immigrants are doing to our economy as well. You can't celebrate our economy and go to a grocery store and, enjoy fruit and all these other things where we know a lot of our fruit farmers are immigrants. In being real and appreciating the contributions in our own community, a lot of our construction work, a lot of our road work, a lot of our work here is done by immigrants. So you can't benefit from what they contribute and then punish them and be super retributive at the end of the day. I don't think that that's right. I think we need to make sure that we create an environment where if you are an immigrant and you are in our community, you are contributing, we need to figure out a way to, account for that. Make sure that there is transparency and in like your interaction with society, and figure out how we can create clear paths to citizenship for those people that are positively contributing to our communities. And I don't think we have that right now. I think our country has turned to this, unfortunately, we've turned to this nature of saying, if you're here illegally, then we're not going to treat you humanely. And that's not who we are as a country. I mean, if you see what's happened at our borders, if you look at the detention centers that are right here in our community, in Bossier Parish, there's a detention center, one of the fastest growing detention centers in the country. And a lot of people don't even know that. I don't think that that's who we are. I think we need to figure out a way to reform our immigration policies, again, to reward those that are contributing to our country and not punish them.
So as a Shreveport citizen, growing up here, I am originally from Mexico. My parents moved here for the same reason, like we said, to better our the future for their children, us. And so I've grown up here since I was 5. Went to school here, high school here, ended up in college here.
What high school did you go to?
Loyola.
Okay.
A lot of the classmates that you had are friends of mine right now. But don't worry, they haven't said anything personal about you.
I was like,
I
was my class president in high school, so I hope they still like it. Yeah.
So I actually I would consider myself a proud Shreveportian. But now I find myself as an adult who has probably ventured out of her bubble into the city more, seeing what the issues are in our city. And I fight a daily battle with the person who I am married with to convince him that Shreveport is great, that I don't plan to leave this city. Okay, that it has provided my family, myself, our friends a great opportunity. And I intend to embrace that. I do not want to be, I guess we would say, scared away, as everyone else seems to, leaving Shreveport because the crime is up. Leaving Shreveport because the economy is getting down. Let me move, I don't want to be that. And I don't want to have to fight a battle every day. Yeah. So I love this city. I want to protect it. I want to do what I can in my means. I'm not going to go run for any kind of, office or anything.
You should. No. Right?
I am nothing but a hardworking citizen that just wants to see the environment around me thrive. You ran for mayor. You obviously wanted the same thing for the city. Absolutely. You came back to a city that gave you something and you want to do the same thing. But now you're leaving us.
So are you leaving us?
I was
about to get in love.
You want to leave us.
I enjoyed this question because I like to explain.
You want to leave us. In the past, Hightower served 2 terms. Did Glover serve 2 terms, I think?
He did.
Yes, he did.
Tyler attempted to serve her 2nd term. 4 years isn't enough. I don't think 2 years isn't enough to do a lot of work. If you wanted to come back and change Shreveport, if you wanted to come back and make a difference, why not stay?
Yeah. So I'll say this, and there's a lot in that question. The people say you're leaving us, but People don't understand. If you have a senator from Shreveport, I'm actually going to live in Shreveport. I will do most of my work in DC, but my residence will remain in Shreveport. And people have a hard time grasping that because it's been 40 years since J. Bennett Johnson from Shreveport was serving in the Senate. So I'm still going to go to my same church. You're still going to bump into me at the grocery store, but I would be doing my work in DC on behalf of this community.
But
And
why don't I stay? Stay here, finish what you start, and then.
Oh, I'm gonna get to that part. No. I'm gonna get to that part. So the whole like, oh, you're gonna leave Shreveport. That's just. I'm not. I'm gonna be working in DC on behalf of Shreveport because, like I said, I fully believe that this whole system has to work. I know this whole system has to work for cities like Shreveport to thrive. When you talk about improving a downtown. If there was federal dollars for an infrastructure bill, you could have a booming downtown within a matter of 3 to 4 years. But the current senator has not voted on an infrastructure bill, and it doesn't look like he would even on the other side of COVID-19. We're going to need jobs. But so the reason why is I am stepping up in this moment because I saw what COVID-19 was doing to our community, and it started to be telling of my opponent on who he was. Because if you're not there for people in their greatest time of need, you're not going to be there for them otherwise. And when I saw Shreveport when I was leaving law school and I had these opportunities to go everywhere, to genuinely leave Shreveport, and never come back, I said, no, I'm going to go to Shreveport because I'm going to help out. Shreveport needs to have technological upgrades. Shreveport needs to have a more aggressive policing approach with community-oriented policing to make it safer. Shreveport needs more opportunity. So I came back. So this is a time where I am stepping up to protect my community. It's not to leave it. And it's very similar to what I saw during 9/11 when I was sitting at Captain Shreve High School and we were under attack. And I saw the fear on people's faces on what is going to happen tomorrow, this uncertainty, this anxiety. And I said, even though I had opportunities to go to Harvard and Columbia and all these places, I stepped up and I said, I'm going to serve in the military. So it's interesting to me, like this is consistent throughout my life. If my community is under attack by a terrorist or a virus, I'm going to step up and serve it in the best way as possible. So it's interesting to me that people don't see this consistency and they think that it's like for some personal motivation or some personal gain. I can continue to help Shreveport in even a bigger way if I'm a U.S. Senator from Shreveport. Shreveport would be gaining a senator. It wouldn't be losing a mayor.
I understand your point of view, but I really would like we just start a connection. And I really appreciate that you be here with us today. I really appreciate that you take that time because I bet that you didn't expect all these questions, right?
Yeah, but if I could serve as mayor and U.S. Senator, I would do that. I would 100% do it to finish. But the calling and the need at the federal government is far greater right now because of resources. Shreveport does not have enough resources to pay those unemployment benefits that I was talking about people need right now. If I could do that out of my budget, I would do it.
I understand.
But, go ahead.
So the decision to run for Senate came after you became mayor?
Nobody in their right mind chooses to run a Senate race with 6 months if they wanted to do it in two years ago. You just don't logically, because it takes a long time to do it. COVID-19 is the reason why I ran. I had no desire whatsoever. You can talk to my friends, my family, no desire whatsoever. It was in watching what COVID-19 was doing in Shreveport that I said, I have to step up in this moment. We need support. Shreveport needs support. Louisiana needs support. It was definitely not an easy decision for me to make. And I talked to a lot of people locally before I made the decision to run. And even in the first year, being the safest year in Shreveport in 45 years, just recently, if people will say, oh, Shreveport's too dangerous, I have to move here. The list for the most 100 top cities in the country came out, dangerous cities in the country came out. And for the first time in 4 years, Shreveport did not make the list. 5 other Louisiana cities made it. Like 4 or 5 cities actually more. Like so many cities in Texas made it. Shreveport did not make the list. We're not this dangerous city, but I'll say this, there's an anxiety when cities demographically transition. And there's more black people there. And there's more brown people there. And people say it's unsafe. And it's not based in facts. So that's my job to push back on that. to say, no, Shreveport is a safe community, especially if you're talking about relative to New Orleans or relative, and this is just me listing a city. I love New Orleans. But if you say relative to Dallas or anything like that, I will literally show you numbers where Shreveport is safer. It's this anxiety built up in the troubled racist past of this country. I mean, I'm going to just put it out there. The troubled racist past of this country puts so many stigmas in the minds of people when they see more numbers of black and brown people. And that's not right. Like, that's a message that I have to push back against because it's not right.
Señor Elias, any last words?
Well, no, thank you, Mayor, for
of course, happy to be here.
I heard when you introduction, your family, how you grew up. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud to say that I grew up the same way.
Oh, good.
Same way, where here I am with two of you guys with no education whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't brag with what I have, what I'm doing, but look what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Before you guys, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep, you're living the American dream too.
Yes, I was asleep already. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Perkins. I personally also want to thank you. We have, I think it was an interview long overdue.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
so
yes.
I thank you for
big time.
For giving us the time and clarifying a lot of things for us, letting us get to know you a little more, and basically educating us a little more on a lot of topics.
You guys educated me too. It was great questions. It was very, very good questions. Yep, I look forward to spending more time with you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I personally want to thank you also. I'm actually from Dallas, so I kind of did a reverse migration.
Good. I need to steal some people from Dallas.
Yeah, I'm from Dallas, but I've been living here 12 years, and I've been raising my family here.
Good.
And so I do love Shreveport. Bossier area, we are much kinder, and it had given us more opportunity to own our own small business in the city.
Yeah.
And so thank you again for meeting with us and educating the Latino community.
Yeah.
And we hope to have your continued support, whether
100%.
it is as mayor or senator.
People don't know that my girlfriend's actually Latina as well. My girlfriend's Puerto Rican and black. So, yeah.
We wanted to ask that earlier, but we thought that was too much of a personal question.
The first article ever written about me as mayor was about her. So, yeah, she's Puerto Rican and black. So, yeah.
We attract attention.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mayor Adrian Perkins, for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, for 318 Latino, this has been an interview with Mayor Adrian Perkins. Don't forget to like, share, comment. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Again, Mayor Perkins, thank you so much. Hasta la próxima.